Hey, what's up everyone? Nick here. Welcome back to the Dead Space Impossible Difficulty one gun, no damage walkthrough. It's a mouthful every time I say it, but luckily, or unluckily, depending on how you've viewed this series so far, you won't have to hear it for much longer. So we're moving on to Chapter 11, and there are 12 chapters in the game, so you can do the math and hopefully figure out how many chapters, how many videos there are left. So I was saying in the last video, Chapter 10, in my opinion, is the hardest level of the game. Chapter 11, it's pretty odd. It's an interesting chapter, and I think you'll agree with me because it's a pretty tough chapter, mainly the beginning, the very first section. But I'm going to show you guys a strategy, which is... it's an odd strategy because it's not really a gameplay strategy. It's more taking advantage of the gameplay strategy. So I've talked about this in past videos, but essentially the strategy here is you want to create your own manual checkpoints, right? So when you're playing the game, you'll get automatic checkpoints so that if you die, obviously you start wherever the game gave you the checkpoint. But any time that you're conveniently near a save station, like the one that you see right here, you can essentially use them to create your own manual checkpoints. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Because what's going to happen is we're going to go into this next big room, and there's going to be a pretty long fight, and there's no auto checkpoints during this fight. So we're going to kind of keep hopping out of this room to save our game so that, you know, if anything happens, we can just revert back to that save file and make our lives a lot easier. Now, when you first come into the room here, from the very top floor, way up here, you saw what I just did. There's going to be an exploder, and then there's going to be a bloated enemy, and I basically just waited for them to... I'm basically just going to wait for them to kind of converge on their paths and then shoot the exploder so that he'll kill the bloated enemy for me, and he'll kill all of the leeches that may or may not come out of the body. And then you saw there are two lurkers that will spawn, and so I'll go ahead and kill them as well. But an important thing to note there is that I killed all of those enemies from the top floor balcony. And that's going to be the overarching theme of this fight right here. So essentially what happens, we're going to go down, and for the time being you have nothing to worry about. You're in this big room that's kind of rectangular in shape, and you can only move around the perimeter of the rectangle. So what you're going to do here is just go, and this is really the only time you're going to get where you don't have to worry about enemies, so I recommend you take advantage of that. You're just going to go around the perimeter, go to every corner, and there's going to be power nodes, there's going to be, you know, plasma energy, just a bunch of resources. Pick up whatever you want. You can sell any of the ammo that you don't need if you have room for it in your inventory. Obviously, you guys know this stuff by now. But essentially what's going to happen is there's a panel that you have to interact with, and once you interact with that panel, the first wave of enemies is going to spawn. And so as soon as you do that, you're going to immediately run back to the elevator, take it up to the second floor, and then hold your ground up there. And it's a lot easier, and you'll see why once we get to that. The bottom floor here is not easy to interact with, so here we go. You might not have even seen me do that, but I interact with the panel. I run for the elevator. This guy's going to hop out of the vent. I'm going to freeze him. The funny thing is, accidentally, when I froze him, I actually froze the elevator as well. So you'll notice I'm just sitting here on a frozen elevator hoping that no enemies come. But once you interact with that panel, that's what's going to trigger the first wave of enemies. And if you try to fight them on the bottom floor, it's not a very ideal location to fight, because the necromorphs down there they'll tend to sprint at you, and they can easily kind of come up from you from either the front or the back. But watch what happens here. So when you come up here to the second floor, first off, I can see these enemies coming at me from the bridge right here. So look at that. I'm already able to kill one of them, you know, from way over here without any danger to myself. But then up here, you'll notice this vent on the wall, and if you come up here and hold your ground for the fight, you can actually basically force all of the enemies to spawn in this vent. And so you'll just be able to stand here. Obviously, you'll want to stand as far away from the vent as you can, and you're just going to wait for them to come out, and they'll seriously come out one by one, and you can, if you happen to get overwhelmed, you can easily stasis them. But otherwise, they're just going to basically come right out of this vent, and it's just going to make your life incredibly easy. One of the things to note, the enemy that you just saw me kill, it's one of those necromorphs that have the metal armor on its legs. So you're going to want to make sure you're shooting the arms, and sometimes it can be a little easier to stasis those guys, because I think it just has to do with the habit of shooting off the legs, that shooting off the arms is a bit harder for some reason. Anyway, your objective here, once you interact with that panel, it brings up this thing called the marker, and you have to use your kinesis module to drag the marker all the way through the room. And you can actually bypass an entire set of enemies by upgrading your kinesis module, which by now you should have done all the way anyway. But you can actually move the marker almost to where it needs to go, all from the second floor right here. And then, because what will happen is once you're finished moving the marker, more enemies will spawn, and you'll have to run all the way back to the elevator to get away from those enemies. But by doing it this way, what you can do is go downstairs, move the marker, and then make a run for it back to the elevator, and you can get there, you know, fast enough to where the enemies aren't even going to have a chance to catch up to you. So again, you'll see what I'm talking about, but there is an important thing to know, and that's the first wave of enemies. It's actually a lot bigger than you just saw. So watch what happens here. I'm going to ride the elevator down, and I'm going to immediately go back up. So watch this. Go down, immediately back up, and that's because you saw a necromorph spawn right in front of me. So that enemy is part of the first wave. So technically, what's supposed to happen is when you interacted with that panel that triggered this whole event, all of the enemies are supposed to spawn, and that's what kind of gets you overwhelmed. But by doing it how I did it, if you run to the elevator fast enough, you can actually get to the elevator before these enemies have a chance to spawn. And that's what you saw me do, and then you basically kind of split the first wave of enemies into two smaller waves. And so now that I've gone down and kind of triggered that second half of the enemy spawn, I'm going to just do the same exact strategy. I'm going to come back up here, hold my ground. You could see exactly what I was saying earlier. All of the enemies are just going to, you know, basically pour out of this vent, and you're just going to stand here and mow them down. And it's, I mean, trust me when I say it's incredibly easy. But what you see me doing right here, you got to be careful about. I went to go pick up that ammo, and when I pressed the button, Isaac accidentally interacted with the power bench, and so you can imagine, had an enemy come out of the vent at that time, he would have easily killed me while I was, you know, dicking around at the power bench, so be careful. But yeah, so now I'm going to do what I mentioned. I'm going to come outside. I'm going to save my game, and so now that basically gives me a manual checkpoint. So, you know, from your guys' perspective, if you're playing the game and if you die, then at least you don't have to do this whole fight over again. But keep in mind, because I know a lot of people, you know, this isn't a new strategy. I've done this in many games where I save my game frequently as a form of strategy. And I've had people talk about how they think that's kind of unfair. And, you know, I kind of get what you're saying. I get where you're coming from. But keep in mind, when you're doing something like this, when you're doing a no damage walkthrough, the stakes are just raised. And like, you don't want to have to... It's different than just dying. Like, if you're playing the game and you get hit, that's okay, because you could just heal and hopefully not die. But if I'm recording a no damage walkthrough, that means I gotta, you know, I gotta cover all my tracks, basically. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with excuses, and I don't think it's working very well. Anyway, There are a couple more enemies down here, a couple bloateds that will spawn in the back corner. So what I'm doing here, shooting these guys from so far away, that's kind of unnecessary. But you'll see kind of why I'm doing it in a moment. It's because even though the room looks clear, you're gonna see that there is another enemy that takes up a ton of ammo, and you're not gonna want to waste all this ammo, but you're gonna have to. And it'll all kind of come full circle later, and you'll realize what I'm talking about. But basically, once you try to make your way across one of these bridges, one of these tentacles is going to spawn, and you've seen these before. You know what to do. It has the yellow volatile orb on it, and you just got to shoot that. And I don't know what it is about this particular tentacle, but it just seems like incredibly overpowered, and it takes a lot of ammo to put down. Luckily, you know, by this point in the game, ammo is not a concern. We have enough money to buy as much ammo as we need. So, I mean, really, you know, don't worry about it. Just hold your ground. This is actually the last enemy that you're going to have to fight in this room if you follow my strategy. Because, like I said, once you are finished moving the marker to where it needs to go, more enemies will spawn, but we're basically just going to haul ass out of the room and get away before any enemies have a chance to confront us. So, until that happens, let me go ahead and take the time to apologize very quickly. So, this video, if you guys remember, was originally supposed to come out on Tuesday. I don't remember I don't remember what the date was. I guess I could deduce it. It's 15, 16, 17. It was supposed to come out on the 17th. No. Wait, 14. The 14th was Friday. 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, it was supposed to come out on the 18th of February, and then part 12 was supposed to come out on the 20th. But I ended up pushing both videos back to the 22nd and 23rd, and that's because I had some technical difficulties, which is always a shame. Basically, I sat down and recorded this entire 30-minute voiceover, only to find out that all but the first 5 minutes actually saved, or didn't save. So the first 5 minutes of the voiceover worked, and then for some reason my microphone cut out, and I was just talking for 25 minutes to nobody. So that sucked. And so I obviously had to find the time to sit back down and record this, and there is some good news that came out of it, though. So, as you guys know, typically when I record commentary, I prefer to do it when I'm by myself. You know, back when I started this channel and I was living at home, I always had to, like, have my mom or my sisters or the students that lived with us, I had to record when everyone was out of the house, because it was just, one, it was what I preferred, but two, I just, you know, it's a lack of other people making noise. And so with this, you know, with this initial voiceover not working, it's kind of frustrating, because then to find time to record, it's tough, because, you know, obviously I work a full-time job, and then when I get home, either I'm tired, or I got to go work out, or the house isn't, you know, there's a whole lot of things that can go into it. So right there, you saw exactly what I was talking about. Let me just comment on it real quick. I moved the marker and then immediately ran back to the elevator, and then I'm basically just going to haul ass out of this room, and every enemy that just spawned, I'm not going to have to worry about them, and it just makes your life pretty easy. Anyway, the good news is I have now kind of come across a much nicer recording setup. So to make a long story short, all these years I've been producing these videos on a desktop PC that I bought specifically for my YouTube channel. And the PC honestly is not that good. It hasn't aged very well, and it's a desktop. It's not portable, or it's not easily portable, and that makes a problem, because, you know, I like to be able to work in various locations. It just kind of, you know, helps my creativity when I can move around and have a different environment around me. So anyway, I just found out, believe it or not, that the editing software that I use, the license that I bought, is able to apply to several devices. So I was actually able to download the editing software on my laptop, which is a pretty strong laptop. It's a pretty powerful one. And then I can easily download the Elgato recording software on my laptop. So that basically means I can now do all of my YouTube production on my laptop and not my PC, or not my desktop. And I'm really excited about that, because that basically means I can record in my bedroom, you know, like record the gameplay in my bedroom where I play games, but then I can record the commentary literally anywhere. I could record it in the backyard if I wanted to. And so that kind of helps for those cases where, you know, like when the house isn't empty or when whatever is going on, I can just move locations. So there is some good news that came out of it. Anyway, we're about to come to a quarantine zone. And this one can be kind of tough, but I'm going to show you what I think is the best place to stand. And it's going to be in the back corner of this room right here. There's going to be, the first necromorph spawns on the right. I'm going to shoot off his legs, then focus on the guy that drops in the middle, shoot off his legs. That one I can actually pretty easily kill. Another one spawns in the middle. This guy's going to be crawling at you. Another one spawns on the left. Pretty standard pattern here. Right, middle, middle, left. And then an advanced form is going to spawn on the left. I'll freeze him, kill him, and then the only thing you have to be careful about here is one advanced form is literally going to spawn like right on top of you. But believe it or not, that actually makes your life kind of easy, because he spawns so close to you that you can just stasis him the second his feet hit the ground, and then just you can either run away, like if you're getting overwhelmed, you could run to the opposite end of the room, or as you saw right there, because I was prepared for him, I had already had every other enemy killed, and so then I just made pretty quick work of him. But yeah, I think that's the best location to spawn, or to stand by far, based on where the enemies spawn. It just seems like kind of the only logical choice in my head. But yeah, that's probably the last difficult part of this level. And
I'm going to dock the shuttle. Got to be careful.
I'm reading something.
I'm bringing the shuttle down now. The automated loading controls aren't responding. You'll have to shut down gravity in the hangar bay, and then manually bring the marker directly beneath the shuttle.
All I know is I really hope that this voiceover saves, because I don't want to have to record this a third time. Alright, so you're going to turn off the gravity, and what you're going to do is you're going to make a 0G jump all the way to the back corner of this flight deck. And then you'll see here what's going to happen is 5 lurkers are all going to spawn on your left. And so then basically what they do is they're going to try to disperse pretty quickly. So there's a couple basic strategies here. One, don't try to shoot each enemy a couple times. Focus on one at a time. Just pick one and kill it. When there's this many of them, your main goal should be just, you know, kill them one by one as fast as possible. Another good strategy is to always be moving. So you'll notice that what I did there is I kind of moved in this big, like, semicircle arc. The main thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're not moving like straight away from a lurker, because they can still shoot those projectiles at you. And if you're moving, you know, straight, then you're going to be moving parallel to the shots, and they'll probably still hit you. Had a little capture card problem right there, but luckily it didn't happen during the fight. But yeah, so when you're moving, what you want to do is kind of strafe to the side, like move perpendicular to the path of the projectiles, because then they'll just easily miss you. They'll just go behind you as long as you keep moving. The other thing to note is you don't want to just move in a arc. You kind of want to move in like a distancing arc, like a kind of like a outward spiral, because the lurkers, when they send out their tentacles and when they look like they're about to shoot those projectiles at you, if you're far enough away, they'll stop. They'll actually stop their attack and they'll try to get closer to you. And so that's a case where you can actually use the size of this room to your advantage. The room is so big that you could just kind of keep moving away from the enemy, and they'll probably never even shoot the projectile at you because you'll just continuously be moving further and further away. But honestly, the trickiest part about that fight is just knowing where they spawn, because if you don't know where they spawn, they can easily kind of sneak up behind you, and then since there's 5 of them, you'll just get easily overwhelmed. So knowing where they spawn is kind of the biggest trick. Anyway, from here, now you just have to move the marker further down this path, and the game is going to kind of do the same thing that it did earlier. Once you move it up to a certain point, 2 of the crawlers are going to spawn out of the vents on the wall. They're both going to be advanced forms, so here they come. Notice how I kind of prepped these explosive barrels in advance, and I'm just going to start firing those at the enemy. Alright, so one's dead. Here comes the second one. I think I have another explosive barrel. That was pretty cool. Oh, it looks like I didn't. Okay, yeah. That was pretty cool. I remember recording that and just thinking, oh, that's going to be so sick when I show that to the viewers. So I shot that guy out of midair with an explosive tank. I thought that was a pretty cool one. Okay, so once those 2 guys are dead, you're not out of the clear yet. There are going to be 2 of the babies that spawn out of the vents that are further along down the wall. So just, again, prepare for that. If you want to, you can prep a couple explosive barrels. I do recommend saving at least 1 barrel, maybe 2, but at least 1, because that's, in a little bit, we're going to come to a pod spitter, and this thing will make pretty quick work of it. So, like I said, I recommend saving at least 1. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to moving the marker. Notice how I'm looking over in that direction because I know they're going to spawn. I just don't know when. So here we go, getting ready. And then right now. So right when that marker gets on top of the rotating panel, that's when they spawn. And again, golden rule. If you can, as long as you know that they're going to be spawning, it's not very hard. All right. So once you get the marker in place, go ahead and just go back up to this control panel. Restore gravity, and then we're going to go back to the shuttle. Now notice what I'm doing here. Like I said earlier, you're going to want to save an explosive barrel. I'm going to pick it up and bring it over here, and then I'm just going to leave it there for the time being. Now this part really pisses me off. Watch what happens here.
We can stop this hive mind. We can end this nightmare at last.
So this is a little nitpicky, but look at the doctor. Look at the way I'm running to him. Now watch this. The angle of that shot is straight towards me. The angle of that shot is parallel with this bridge that I'm on, yet the shot came from the exact perpendicular direction. Like the shot came from a 90-degree angle from the doorway of the shuttle. it's like such a small detail, but it really pisses me off. I'm like, there's no way that where that shot came from causes that injury that we just saw.
Sorry, Isaac. I couldn't let him go through with it. I suppose I should thank you for finding the marker. We even managed without help from the USM Valor. Thank you for helping me find him, by the way. My department's been looking for this place for a long time. See what Kind didn't know was? It was the government's mess to begin with. This whole planet is one big experiment. The marker? This divine relic? Made by man. They reverse engineered it a couple of hundred years ago from the real marker, a true alien artifact recovered on Earth. They dug it up, studied it, and they made it their own. Then they brought it to Aegis 7 and activated it. And you've seen the result. The stuff of nightmares. They sealed the system, and no one would have been the wiser. But then the CEC blunders in and starts tearing the planet apart. The experiment was still alive. Kind was right about the hive mind. The marker would contain it, but that doesn't matter now, does it? I have the marker, and this entire system can go to hell. For what it's worth, you did a great job, Isaac. See you around. Or maybe not.
Isaac, Nicole, I need you to help me. Help us. Now. I'm in the flight control room. Please, Isaac, hurry. Please. I'm sorry.
Alright, so what you're going to do here, exactly what I mentioned earlier, you're going to prep this explosive barrel, put it in front of the door here. Now, open the door. There's going to be 2 or 3 pods already in place. Go ahead and shoot those right away. Grab the explosive barrel, then pop back in, shoot it at the pod spitter, and you'll kill it in one hit. You got to be careful there, because originally what I did my first time was I opened the door and immediately tried to shoot him with the barrel, and in the time that it took me to do that, the 2 or 3 pods that he'd already shot off were able to damage me, and so obviously I just had to redo that section. So it's a lot easier to just kill the first couple of pods,
Isaac?
and then do what you need to do.
I never thought we'd be together again.
So finally we caught up with Nicole.
I'm so sorry.
This is the first time that we're actually like
I never wanted to hurt you.
in the same room as her,
You need to
where
get it
we can
back now,
actually
Isaac.
go up to her and like touch
You
her.
can pilot the shuttle remotely from here.
Because we've seen her so far in the game, but we were always like separated
us
by
whole.
something. And you'll notice
Make
that
us
the room is kind of glitching out for some reason. I'll leave you to wonder what's going on. But anyway, we basically found out that Kendra has been kind of against us the whole time. Like, not necessarily against us in the sense that her goal was to kill Isaac, but clearly
Isaac, what the
she
hell are
had,
you doing?
you know, hidden
You're making a
motives.
big mistake. This is not over.
And all the while, she was trying to turn you against Hammond, right? She was trying to make you think Hammond was up to no good when really it was her.
Repeat. Shuttle has ejected escape pod.
Anyway,
It doesn't
so that's
matter.
just a little bit of the story
She can't
for
escape
you.
her fate. None of us can. Here it comes. I'll reprogram the shuttle so we can fly down to the colony. We're so close, Isaac. Now go! Get on the shuttle. I'll meet you there.
Alright, and so you're going to do exactly that. You're just going to go back to the shuttle, and that will kick off the, end of the level. But as if our lives could be that easy, we are going to have to do one more thing before that. Essentially, as you're making your way to the ship, there's going to be 3 advanced form crawlers that make their way towards you, but I'm going to show you another little interesting strategy. So you'll notice that in this series there have been various instances where the enemies are programmed such that they can't go into certain locations. And what'll happen is if you go into one of those locations, the enemies will go back to their original spawn point. That's exactly what is going to happen here. It's really odd, and it's a really funny way to take advantage of the game. So right here they come. They're going to come charging at you. Obviously, you're going to want to try to damage the first one as soon as possible. But notice how when I come over here to the very left side of the room, they basically run away. Look at this. They just turn around and run away every time. For some reason, they will not follow you over there. And so I'm just going to pop out, shoot one, and then go back. And you'll see they run away, and I'm just going to rinse and repeat until all three of them are dead. I don't know why they do that. It's kind of funny to watch. So there we go. To the left, he runs away, pop back out, finish the job, and guys, that'll basically do it. Once you kill all three of them. Notice too how I tried to use an explosive barrel, but it doesn't really work very well. That's kind of why I said earlier that if you could save at least one for the pod spitter, that's really what you care about. If you could save two, it's worth a shot, but you only need one. Anyway, guys, go into the shuttle, go to the cockpit, and that will end the level. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you get the chance. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you in Chapter 12, the last level of the game.
You're doing the right thing, Isaac. We're together now. The way it always should have been. I knew you'd come back for me. Nothing can stop us now.